We're talking actors and directors who put on the shows.
We're talking playwrights and designers who you'll want to know.
From the very first rehearsal to the final curtain call.
We might be off Broadway, but we're talking about it all.
'Cause we're two local gals
with global pals. It's everything, everything, everything theater.
with Benita
And Ellen. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Everything Theater Podcast, the podcast where we talk about
everything theater and even more with our guests tonight. Hi, I'm Benita Zahn.
And I am Ellen Cribbs. And yes, we have a full house tonight. This is exciting.
Yeah, we really do. So I think, Ellen, you'll ask one question, I'll ask one question, and we're just going to sit back and I'm going to enjoy my coffee.
Exactly.
We're talking with a couple of the folks from the Will Kempe Players. We've got artistic director Shane Sczepankowski is with us. Also, the season producer is Sandra Boynton, and director of development Kristoph. My microphone got excited. That didn't sound right. DiMaria. It's everything in the world. I'm trying it at a different angle. So hi, gang.
Hi.
So let me just sort of set it up. You guys do one show in the summer. It's you're doing Shakespeare, 2 shows this summer? Okay, because based on your web page, but then again, it's its whole story. It was through an audition posting. But anyway, 2 shows this summer, and it's Shakespeare in its own way. But you also do clowning workshops and stage combat and lots of stuff. So tell us about, were you doing Pericles, Prince of Tyre?
We are doing Pericles, Prince of Tyre this year, and I am lucky enough to be directing it. I'm really excited. We decided our season last year, and for some reason, the sort of saga of Pericles stuck out to me, and I was given the opportunity to cut the play and direct the play, and we're having a great time. We have about 5 weeks till we open, so.
What about it spoke to you, Shane?
Watching this main character go through these trials and tribulations and sort of end on this note of hope, it filled me with this idea that the capital region could really use this right now, could really use some hope and some really solid artistic I don't want to say direction because that's pat myself on the back, but the artists in the play, the artists, the actors are really coming together as a beautiful ensemble and bringing a little something different to Shakespeare than we've done in the past. So I'm excited.
So it's all Shakespeare all the time, correct?
No, actually. It
no?
is mostly Shakespeare most of the time. We have had several other deviations over the years. So we were founded in 2017, and you have 2 of the remaining co-founders with you tonight, Sandy and myself. We have performed Happy Birthday, Wanda June by one Kurt Vonnegut Jr. We have performed an adaptation of Sleepy Hollow written by yours truly. We have also done a number of derivative and I would say like pop-up style performances. So we've done character acting. We have done monologues and songs that weren't necessarily Shakespeare's, but were pulled from the early modern period. So they would have been contemporaries. Sandy, am I forgetting anything?
Let's see. Yeah, you are. We did Doubt.
Yeah, how could I forget about Doubt?
And I was Sister Aloysius. So, yeah, we got to read.
We also did Faustus. We did Faustus a few years back.
By Marlowe, yes.
By Marlowe,
and contemporary work. So yeah, we strive to do Shakespeare in a way that we feel and think, based on what we know, that Shakespeare might have recognized if he was to be alive today, adapted for, the modern stage, but with so many of the early modern trappings. And I can definitely let artistic director Sandra Boynton talk more about that.
I will try not to talk too much about that. The thing that's really exciting about early modern performance that we miss in the proscenium stage is we miss the direct contact with the audience. And in the early modern theater, the audience surrounded the stage on at least 3 sides of a thrust stage. And sometimes we think above and behind, viewing from balconies in the outdoor theater, sometimes. So the audience could see the play, the players could see the audience. The audience expected to play with the players. That was an expectation. There was a clown in every company whose job it was to do wordplay or dances or respond to the audience directly. We're bringing that back. That's really, in some ways, what is the through thread in every one of our productions, is that we are seeking audience contact because we believe that live theater is a co-creation between the audience and the players and the text, if there is one.
You know, immersive theater is not what most performers know or are comfortable with. So how do you bring them along to embrace this?
So I'll start. I'd love Shane. I know, Shane, you have a lot of ideas about this, but from a clowning perspective, right, it's all about invitation. The first thing you do is you give the audience permission to laugh, to play along, to sing, to dance. You let them know that this is a participatory conversation, it's a dialogue, and that they're invited to that party. You also know that they don't have to take offers, so you want to keep them safe, right? There's a degree of knowing when to push boundaries, when to challenge boundaries, and when to allow yourself to get gifts from the outdoor space, right? So one thing about immersive theater is oftentimes now it's site specific, and we're a touring company, so we're not designing a piece to fit in a specific space, right? If we were going to talk about Sleep No More, for instance, that is site-specific immersive theater based around the story of Macbeth in, a Chelsea hotel in New York City. And everything has been curated and developed for over a decade and then instituted. Ours is impromptu. It is momentary. It is the idea that you have to take what is given to you in the immediate, whether that be a train going right through the park in which you're performing. And so you build a song around that. And that has also happened with, the mini haha up in Lake George, and that's happened with impromptu birthday parties. But it's also been a way, I'm thinking about the beer diviner now, Sandy and Shane, where, we actually danced through the bar itself and kind of piped people who weren't even intending to see a Shakespeare show that day to the stage to sit down and drink their beer and watch a Shakespeare show. So it's invitation. In terms of
The
training
performer has to
ourselves,
learn. Yeah, that's great. You're making it comfortable for me, the audience. But for the performer, that's a very different skill set.
Absolutely. I mean, so much of what we do is it, and very much to speak to what Rag says, it's still an invitation. We invite our actors into this space. We give them the tools that we've learned from and we use to sort of get over our what a lot of people call Shakespeare. And by inviting your cast into this space and letting them have fun, letting them play, I find that the more enjoyment during the creation process and the more pleasure from the actors, the audience is gonna want to play because everyone on stage is playing. And all of a sudden your audience would feel sort of left out if they didn't play along. And that's part of what we do. We bring a show, but we bring a party, we bring entertainment, we bring engagement. And I think that's it can be a little scary and a little frightening from time to time. But we create a space where it's okay to play, it's okay to make mistakes, and you do that, you make enough mistakes, and eventually you can put it on stage and entertain people with it.
Now, hearing all
yeah.
this, I imagine like as a comedy, that would really lend itself to it, right? And I think, You guys are Will Kempe, who originated Falstaff, right? That's that kind of clowning vibe to it. But when you are tackling Pericles or something, Titus Andronicus, how does that, interactive layer match with the audience in those heavier shows?
Sandy, do you want to talk about this, or
Yeah,
would
I
you?
was say
Sure.
that's a doozy.
Okay. First of all, Ellen, Shakespeare's tragedies are very funny.
That's true.
They are very funny. So the first thing that you have is that direct connection with the fun in the plays with the audience. That's similar. So quite frankly, that's the road in. The other thing that I think works really well with the tragedies to give this direct contact is that we believe that most of the time the monologues and soliloquies were not navel gazing as they become on the proscenium stage where there's nobody to contact with. The idea, I think, in Shakespeare, is that the audience is the character's silent, ever best friend who sits with him, cannot most of the time have any agency to affect his life, but is there to listen. So that, and that takes some of the kind of starchiness. I'm thinking Hamlet right now. To be or not to be, if it's withdrawn and behind a proscenium arch and way away from the audience, it's pretty starchy. It's, a couple of lists and a little bit of talk about suicide is really what it is. But if you're really looking at an audience and talking to somebody right there and saying, to be or not to be, that is the question, and you're starting a dialogue. The idea of that is not brought in from the wings. The idea occurs to Hamlet in the moment, talking to people that he believes are really there.
Mm-hmm.
And it is immediate and engaging in a way that I can't. And Hamlet becomes your friend.
Yeah.
Hamlet does some terrible things to people like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Your friend does bad things. And it's a different way of looking at all of the plays. And I know you guys have done a lot of plays with me, and I guess I'm just going to say it works. It just works.
Yeah, to provide a real world example, when we performed Othello in 2018, I had the privilege of playing the role of Iago. And so many of Iago's monologues are specifically targeted to make the audience accomplice to what he is doing. He is literally explaining his process and inviting them to support him, even though they know what else is going on stage. And so you are asking the audience to be vulnerable enough to come with you on that journey. And as an actor, as a performer, I too have to allow myself to be vulnerably affected. And so there's a practice there that's not necessarily couched in comedy. It's about being seen and being okay with the audience having their own thoughts and opinions about you that are going to change the way that you perform in that moment. So, another portion of this is that the conversation that Sandy is alluding to is very real exchange in the moment with the person that you are delivering that to be or not to be speech to. It is who you are asking to make an accomplice, and then exploring what else is there and allowing that to change how your performance moves through the play. There's a fluidity that one has to embrace if choosing to perform this way.
And having done this for so long, I find so little difference between performing a comedy and a tragedy, because as is said before, it's so much about just having a conversation with the people in the space and in the room. And they could ignore that conversation, as Sandy said. If you put them on a proscenium and put people 100 feet away, that's going to be a very difficult conversation to have, because you're sort of screaming your half of the conversation at somebody. But one of the things that we sort of play with and engage with is a much closer audience relationship, physically even. We put some seats on the stage, often referred to as gallant stools. And that way we have anywhere from 4 to 10 people who are within in arm's reach away. You know, if we want a high five, we go up and get a high five. If we really want to ask somebody a question because it's in our text, it's not just language that we're regurgitating. We see a person, they're looking at us, and we're going to talk to them, and we're going to ask them that question, you know. And occasionally you get an answer, you know, and you play with that sort of improvisational relationship. But for me, it's just about talking to people, and it's less about whether it falls into a comedy or a tragedy, or in Pericles' plays a romance, if you will.
In that regards, what you're looking for is very different than other companies who are auditioning for a Shakespearean show, because they a lot. I see. Oops, I've been having trouble with that mic tonight. That, and is that they're looking for someone's trained in Shakespeare. That's not what you're talking about.
It kind of is what we're talking about. I think the idea of being trained in Shakespeare has really gotten a bad rap over, you know, the last couple hundred years, where once we created this proscenium arch of a stage, there became this sort of heaviness to the role, because there was no longer an ability to talk to people. So you had to internalize everything. You weren't allowed to externalize anything because no one was there. No one was close enough. You were blinded by the lights. And what we do is we train in that Shakespearean style as we genuinely understand it to have been. We're using cue scripts. We're using original language and punctuations. We're doing a lot of emotional relationship building, understanding that, you know, those strong shifts in emotion are not only entertaining to watch, but embedded in the text that you're reading.
Speak the speech, I pray you. You have to still know how iambic pentameter works and all of its aberrations within Shakespeare's language. You have to understand the punctuation, and, you know, the way that we work is often from the 1623 folio. So we're using the original spelling, original pronunciation, and original punctuation, which, you know, I would say demands more of the Shakespearean actor than perhaps some of the auditions that you may be referring to.
So tell us, you've mentioned Pericles a little bit. Tell us a little bit about Midsummer Madness. What's that entail?
Ooh, Midsummer Madness is a bit of a different adventure for Will Kemp's this year. So Midsummer Madness is an experimental devised piece where we have cast 8 actors, and they are currently in rehearsals alongside Pericles. But the madness of our Midsummer is that we don't know who the cast is, and neither do the actors in the show, because that will be determined randomly and live every evening in front of an audience and engaging with that audience. So we're still getting that conversation, we're still getting that engagement, but no one knows what role they'll be playing until their name is drawn from that hat.
So they're memorizing the entire show?
So what we're actually doing is they have a much truncated script. It's about an hour and a half cut. And we have 8 actors. Each of them will be playing approximately 2 characters, because there's about 16 characters in our cut. And they will be using a script. And that's part of the reason why we're in rehearsals right now, so that we can get really familiar with the text, do that research, do that study, and build that relationship with the people on stage, because we have to be able to trust our fellow actors, because one night someone could be playing Oberon, and then the next night they could be playing Titania, and then, you know, 3 shows from now they could be playing Bottom. So everyone is familiar with the entire show, and, you know, we'll see how that unfolds each night.
But in the end, they'll hold the script?
They will.
Is that voted on by the audience, or how is it determined who plays what night?
So I think there's going to be a little bit of voting, and I think it's going to be at random as well. I think the audience is going to get some agency in the fact that because this show has sort of revisitability, you come to see one week and the next week is going to be different. So the idea is that audience members who have come multiple times get the opportunity to occasionally vote. I came to see my friend and I really want to see my friend play this role, so I'm going to advocate for that.
And that's running when?
That runs alongside Pericles. So typically it's when we play in a weekend, one Saturday or Sunday will be Pericles, and then the other day would be Midsummer.
Except Prospect Park.
Except Prospect Park.
Each of the shows open at Prospect Park in Troy, and Midsummer opens the second weekend of July, and Pericles the third, if I got that right. And it's just easier to open each show separately. I'm sure you know that.
And will it always all summer be in Prospect Park? Or
Only
you
for the
move it
first
around?
2 weeks, and then we are off in our full bus for the rest of our dates, from Sand Lake to Shepherd Park and Lake George, Jennings Landing, WAMC's the Linda, and places I have forgotten.
Does it typically be the same venues every year that you revisit?
Yes and no.
We have some haunts that we love to come back to, and then we're always challenging ourselves with new places. So Jennings Landing in Albany in that amphitheater will be one of our first. There, we have historically performed at Hubbard Hall at Cambridge, as well as at Music Haven in Schenectady, but we won't go to either of those locations this year. But we do go back to Sand Lake Center for the Arts in April Park almost every year, and we always open our show in Prospect Park. So it's a mixed bag. Part of Will Kemp's Players Cooperative mission is to bring theater to places where theater is less accessible to the people who live there. And thus the bus, who is nicknamed Robin Goodfellow, by the way, and travels hither and yon. And so, the notion is that we want to make sure that wherever we land, anybody can come and see our shows. And almost all of them, unless dictated by the venue, are free and open to the public.
Which brings me to my next question. How do you pay for all this?
If I told you, Benita, I'd have to kill you. I'm sorry.
You have to get
I bet you didn't see that.
You're gonna have to get in line.
Dun, dun, dun. Ah, man, I hate waiting in queues. No. So truly, we are a scrappy cooperative built out of sponsorships, nonprofit grants, and a lot of donations from our supporters. So we do a number of different things. I have written several grants partnering with the Alliance of Resident Theaters in New York, which is a New York City-based small arts nonprofit support group. There is, of course, the Art Center of the Capital Region, who's a decentralization agent for NISCA, and we've received funding from them, from Stewart Shops, which I think every theater around here knows is a good supporter. We also have support from the Friends of Prospect Park, so they actually preside over the care of the venue. And they work closely with RPI's Phi Sigma Kappa fraternity, who also supports us. In addition, we perform a lot of pop-ups. We were actually just at the New York Capital District Renaissance Fair for their 10th anniversary at Indian Ladder Farms this past weekend, and we performed there. Part of those proceeds also go to support our season, as well as all the performers who showed up to the Ren Fair. So it's an amalgamation, as I'm sure you both know. You have to be flexible. You have to take it where it's being given, and you have to work really hard to make sure that the arts are consistently funded.
Corporate sponsorships are shrinking and disappearing. It's a very challenging environment right now.
Some of the things that make it, I won't say easier because it's never easy. We don't have any real estate here. We don't have a building. We don't have taxes. We've got a bus.
We do have a bus.
Register it and change the oil, but it's a little different. And we are a group that works with the idea that we are going to tour, and that everything that we do, every piece of clothing that we own, our backdrop, our backdrops, our scenery, whatever, are tourable. They can go on the bus, they can come off the bus. If it can't go on a school bus, we don't own it. We don't have it, and we're not going to. So we stay smaller. And because we're original practices, some of the tech that modern theaters have, we don't have. We do it with under universal lighting, either the sun or a wash or the house lights, and that's it. Unless we have environmental factors that preclude otherwise, we don't use anything but live ambience, live acoustic sound.
Wow. Unlike where Kristoph is struggling to remain seen this evening.
Yes,
Oh, is it getting that bad? I thought that the laptop was at least illuminating me enough.
I think it was depending on what website you were on.
Ah, yes, of course.
And now you were
Oh,
doing
you know what it
great.
is? Every time your Everything Theater banner comes up,
Oh,
my face
you
is
get
just
you get that
bathed in
red
red.
glow.
It's
Bright
based on
red.
who's speaking. Yeah, that's
It's very
funny.
Shakespearean in a way. It's like, oh, there's something macabre happening over there.
it's an Iago moment, Kristoph.
Is there a show that you, obviously, something you haven't done, but you really want to? It's in the works, it's percolating for the next season or two?
Ooh, I feel like that list is never ending. You could talk to any of us on any given day, and we'd have our top 5 easy.
I say,
Okay.
at this point, have you tackled all of the folio, or are there ones that you have yet to explore?
We
We're about a third of the way through,
Yeah.
actually. We're about a third of the way through the 1623 folio, and we probably include a couple of other things in our purview, like Two Noble Kinsmen, which is not in the 1623. But we're about a third of the way through.
And technically Pericles isn't in the folio either, so it's a quarto piece. So while we try to aim on our original texts, we do occasionally vary.
And I see how I confused 1 and 2 shows this summer. I had seen the audition for Pericles, and because it runs the whole summer, those of us who are uninitiated, you had in tandem.
Well, you're officially initiated, and
I feel it now.
Welcome.
You should come play with us, Benita. It is really interesting to do 2 plays side by
Yeah,
side.
no doubt.
It's
And
an
as she knows,
actor-
I like immersive theater.
Mm-hmm.
It's really
you would
an
have a
actor-
blast, Benita.
Oh, you would.
You would.
Well, auditions are usually in February, so come on through.
There's a little problem. I'm equity.
Now there's an interesting conversation, right? So it's my understanding that there's still ability to get waivered, right? You can still do small projects or no?
Yeah, that's a conversation for a whole nother day.
That's a different
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, right.
Podcast.
No, because that's something I want to figure out. I mean, to be honest with you, it doesn't make sense for us to be an equity house because like we talked about, we try to keep our overhead low. That would immediately change a number of dynamics within producing this season. And don't get us wrong, we want to pay actors and we want to pay them as well as we can, and we do.
And Ellen likes
and we
that
have
idea. She'll come because you want to pay.
right, yes. But at the same time, right, the membership to equity and then the strictures that it puts on, who you can work with and how you can work with them really does stifle production in this region specifically. I mean, I think it's wonderful that you're an equity actor, and I'm very happy to hear that. I know some people who have had their membership and have actually given it up because they want to do work here, and as opposed to having to always schlep to New York City.
Yep.
And I'm sure as people's situations change, those things change. So until there's a bridge built, and if you know how to build that bridge, I'm down to have that conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't hire equity actors unless they can get a waiver.
Yeah, I hear you. And that is a conversation for a whole nother day.
It is. And all the rules have changed too, with it's so confusing.
And since COVID, right, a lot of things have changed since then.
So much. Are they getting rid of the EMC program? It's very
Really?
confusing.
Didn't realize that. Mm-hmm.
Hey, just buy your way in.
And,
All about the money.
So it's just, ooh,
What a world, what a world, what a world.
yeah.
We took a
All the-
turn. We took a turn somewhere. I don't know what happened.
Well,
What
it
was
begs
that
the
about?
question. I mean, this is kind of putting me back to that time 4 years ago when, everything theater changed. Everything changed for every theater in the area. And one of the things that we ruminated on a lot was Shakespeare's time during the plague, right, where he would have to flee London and go to the country, and have to perform on the road because outdoors was the safest place you were going to be, and being in the country was the least exposure risk. And the economics of that were very different than the situation in London. And I'm just seeing a lot of parallels being drawn to the way that we're experiencing the arts organization's solvency over the course of the last 10 years here in the capital region. And like it's a much larger conversation, but so much good talent, so much good work is coming out of this place. And we want to keep it going and we want to see it keep going. But
I-
how?
Well, I've
You
got a
know?
quick one for you. There
Yeah.
are some houses that still haven't seen the numbers return. Some because many, it's no secret that a lot of theater goers are over the age of 55
Most
and are
definitely.
maybe less comfortable being indoors and close to other human beings. Being that you're out of doors so much, have you found your numbers to have rebounded or increased, or are you struggling like some closed door houses are as well?
That's a great question. I would say that, our struggle is different. I don't think that our audience is hesitant about gathering in public, right? Like a lot of people who have um more immune compromised or just more risks that they're not willing to take. I do think, however, the overall economic shift since that time has caused less people to come out and support the same amount of theaters. So, for instance, an audience member, I mean, unless you're Patrick White, of course, who we love and adore, who, sees everything literally that happens in the capital region, sometimes more than once, we don't have that privilege as much anymore where folks are coming out and seeing as many things as possible every weekend. Just even personally from the perspective of being in my mid-30s and having become a parent, I have a 2-year-old at home, I do not longer have the time or the finances to regularly go and see as much theater as my heart and soul wants me to. I would say for Will Kemp's, the audience is climbing. We definitely had a hiatus in 2020. We saw a small dip, I would say, in 2021 and 22. But, over the last couple years, those amounts have been steadily growing and fortifying. And part of that, I think, is our flexibility and resiliency. And part of it is that we offer, mostly free performances by donation. And that accessibility focus makes it so that audiences feel more comfortable coming to see us.
And we also tend to do shows over a sort of 2-month period, which is often a bit more of an extended run than a lot of houses are able to hold a show for. So while we're only doing maybe 6 to 8 performances, there seems to be a lot more time and space and flexibility for people to make time to come and see that because it stretches over such a long over the summer,
Oh, we're gonna lose you guys in literally 3 minutes. So
No.
I know Zoom is brutal, but before we wrap up, I just real quickly want to ask the three of you, what is your absolute favorite Shakespeare? What do you recommend?
My favorite, hands down, Timon of Athens. There's something about watching new money lose all that money and grow a real internal hatred for the world. I just love it. Makes me happy.
How about
Right?
Rags?
I'm currently really drawn to The Tempest, the notion of magic and one's desire to flee, or, not by their own choice, to be wound up in a new place, and to take what magic is there and turn it to their own advantage, and then have to reckon with those consequences. Very fabulous. And of course, this is heralded as one of Shakespeare's last plays. So it's really interesting to explore his goodbye to the theater through that piece.
Nice. And Sandy?
Oh dear. The problem is, of course, every time I say I don't like a play, I direct it, and then when I find out I love it. I'm going to talk about a couple of plays that are just people don't like, and that I think are brilliant. I love, of all things, Two Gentlemen of Verona. It is a difficult play. It has a thorny ending, but it really is. It's almost everything that Shakespeare ever talks about in one tiny little play is a setup for his entire life. And then my long love is Measure for Measure. It is another brutal play. And then his grown-up love story, Antony and Cleopatra.
And we will leave it on love as we look at our time running down. What a delight to have you all with us today. Rags and Shane and Sandy, thanks. And here's to a fabulous, fabulous season.
Thank
Thank
you. We
you.
hope
Thank
to
you
see
so much.
you on the lawn.
We'll see you there.
We'll be there.
Been a
Thanks
pleasure.
everyone for listening.
Thank you
I'm
so
Ellen
much.
Cribbs.
And I'm Benita Zahn. On the lawn, gang. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to the Everything Theater podcast. Special thanks goes out to Alice Grinling for our photography and Justin Friello for composing our amazing theme song. Please remember to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you want to share your thoughts or what's going on in your theater community, you can reach out to us on social media or through our email at everythingtheaterpodcast@gmail.com. Till next time, it's everything, everything, everything.